perspectives, different views, one voice.
Welcome to the LDN Perspective. I'm kind of excited about this episode because there's quite a few of us, and we've also got some of our USA connections, our brothers and sisters up in the US. So I'm your host. My name is Mo, and I've also got my friends here with me.
I'm Kojo. I'm Ali.
And so we got three special guests today from the US. If you could just just introduce yourself quickly and just say where you're from and how long you've been living there.
I'm Michelle. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm from the US.
Yeah, I'm Ebony, also from Alexandria, Virginia. Don't live there right now, but yeah, from there.
And Balfour?
Yes, I'm getting used to this, so it's like new people that came into the thing, right? So I got to reintroduce myself. Okay, yeah, my name is Balfour. I'm from Alexandria. I've lived here my whole life. Alexandria, Virginia. I've lived here my whole life. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I'm kind of a straight to the point kind of person. So let's just get stuck in. Obviously, considering everything that has happened recently. I know just to give you a bit of a backstory, a lot of the injustices that have been happening to Black people in our community, and the biggest trigger point lately has been George Floyd and what's happened to him. I'm sure everybody here doesn't live under a rock, so you're all fully aware of what's happened. My first question really is, I just want to get an idea from everyone how this has affected you and those around you, especially something like this happening again. This isn't the first, second, or third time happening to someone in our community. I first want to get a start off with the views from those in the US, because obviously us being in London, our perspective may be a bit different, but we would really like to hear how it's affected you guys. If I could start with the ladies first and then Balfour.
So I think here, it's sad to say, but I think it's true that it's expected almost. It happens so frequently. I guess with the attention that it's getting now, I'm grateful for that. I'm actually glad that people are standing up and saying too much, enough. We're not gonna have this happening so frequently anymore. But it is something where like some of the stories make the national news, some of the stories make the international news, but like living here, we know that it happens more frequently than we even realize.
I think at this point, a lot of people are just tired of it constantly happening. And like Ebony said, it's not something that is surprising to any of us because it is something that is so frequent. And the fact that, George Floyd is a widely televised and it's widely known, his situation and what happened to him is widely known. I think it's good. However, I think a lot of people in the community are just exhausted at this point and they're just tired of it happening. And a lot of people are lashing out because they don't know exactly what to do at this point because we've tried many different things and for so long and it seems like nothing has changed. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, this particular situation, like she said earlier, like it's not something that is out of the norm for us. It's become normalized. So like this, like right now with what's going on, it's like our mindset is like how long is it going to last until we get back to right? Like people is going to get swept under the rug type of thing, because nothing really happens, nothing really changes. It's too deeply rooted. Like the officer that has killed this man on TV, on camera, in our eyes, has been charged with third, not second, not even second, third degree murder. So that's for the globe to see. This is the type of stuff we got to deal with. If something happened in our eyes, like our eyes is lying to us. You get what I'm saying? That's the reality we live in America.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you guys share that. It's interesting to hear. There are a few more people that have joined the conversation. So just to let anyone else that has joined in, if you do have any comments or anything you want to say, just send a private message directly to Koj, Koj, and he can either bring you in or bring that forward. So yeah, even me experiencing and witnessing what had happened, I'll be honest with you, even I think it was to the point where it's the first time you've ever seen it on this kind of level, in terms of the guy didn't seem threatened or anything like that, and was just casually doing that for 9 minutes for you to actually see them pass away. And it was tearful. It was so emotional, so emotional looking from the outside in. And I think the hurtful thing in terms of my perspective here from the UK is I've seen them charge so many different people on third degree. Like every officer that has killed someone always gets charged third degree murder. But it's always just a charge. If it goes court, they're let off. Nothing ever really happens. And the scary thing is you just feel this is going to also fall in that same kind of cycle. And I think that's more like the painful, hurtful thing I find from it all, from seeing this. I mean, what did you other guys think, Cam, Koj, and Ali?
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. It's heartbreaking to see these sort of things, and to see this egregious act like caught on camera. And initially the blowback was that nothing was going to happen at first, because I'm pretty sure I saw articles where the prosecutor said there may have not even necessarily been enough evidence of taking it forward. And then a few days or a few hours later, you've heard that one of the officers have been charged with third degree murder. However, I think it's a question of, despite the fact that someone's been charged, will we get a conviction from this? Because we've seen these sort of situations play out. We almost kind of know how this is going to end, because it's like, yeah, you're charged, but will there be a conviction at the very end? Because that's the only way to really send a message about these sort of things happening and people getting away with these sort of things. It's like, what will the system do to place some form of punitive measures on this sort of behavior?
Yeah, I think just adding to that, it's hard to watch these videos. Sometimes I even choose not to, because I feel like it's just a repetitive kind of cycle. Here goes another person that's died again on the hands of the police. And I think for me, it's not necessarily that. I think Black people, a lot of the times we have to see ourselves outside our environment. And the reason why I say that, even for myself, a lot of my family is from Virginia. Actually, I'm preparing to come down there maybe next year or so. So I'll come and look for you guys. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I could see myself being in America and the same thing happening to me. It doesn't matter whether I live in the UK, I live in Africa, I live in the Caribbean. It is a skin color stuff. So when you're watching this, and it's very, very, very difficult to kind of deal with these things, when you're like, what age are we in? What year are we in? Why is this thing still happening? And I think for me, the difficulty is just sometimes we talk about Black people being in a position of power and being able to do something about it and all those kind of stuff. And we know that some of the states, the mayors are Black. There are certain stuff that have changed in America, but then it still feels like these kind of things always kind of go on. So obviously it's very frustrating to understand where is the end goal? What are we aiming at? When is all this going to kind of end? So it's very, very, very challenging when you're trying to look at maybe how is this going to pan out moving forward. So yeah, I think it kind of hits home when you watch a lot of these videos. It's not like we are here, so we do not kind of understand what a lot of you guys are going through, because we could imagine ourselves being in that situation, being there and the same thing happening to us.
For me, I kind of feel your pain, guys, especially in America. And it's really, really, really sad. To be frank, I couldn't just watch the whole video, because I just couldn't, because the fact that this guy was crying out for his mom, and there was a phrase that says, are we an animal, or is this Caucasians? Who are they? Are they an alien? You know what I mean? Are they alien? Because if they are alien, maybe they might think that we are nothing. But if we are all humans, why would you treat another human, you're treating another human the way you're treating even an animal? You can't even treat an animal like that. Yet alone, our color seems like it does not exist to any other race. And history as what our participants has just mentioning now, to be frank, I'm not seeing a change. The only change that I'm seeing is for blacks, people of color to unite. Once that starts to happen, I believe there will be a change. That's what I think from seeing that, witnessing that. So yeah.
Yeah, Coach, have you had any questions or anything come through or responses?
Yeah. Good thing that you just said that. I think Clark has a question. It was more directed to Barford regarding whether he's ever experienced something like that. But I think at this point we might just get Clark just to ask the question, just in case there's something I haven't asked properly. So Clark, is there something you want to? Do you mind just asking that question again?
Yeah, I was just asking because Balfour's a black male and he's in America and he's lived there. He's saying that he's lived there his whole life. I wanted to know if like there's any sort of things that haven't come to sort of light in a sense of that made it such a norm for you. Like, have you experienced it personally yourself?
Of course. I mean, you they brand you. It starts early. It's not like you just start getting in. Like, okay, you say you live in a certain development, a housing area, a project or apartments. Say like how you guys have it in London. Like you guys have flats or what? I don't know how y'all call it. Like the neighborhood for low income. That those neighborhoods will be targeted from you adolescents just playing ball, riding your bike. You will see that traffic, police traffic. You will see it coming around as you're growing. Okay, when you get to middle school, when you get a little bass in your voice, you're now going to be dealt with like a man by a white police officer. The thing you guys don't understand, right? In this country, a white person can police you, not even if they're the police. They feel like they have the right to tell you you're wrong, even if they're not the police. It's too deep in this country. It's psychological. It's mental. Like I see what you was just saying. The last person you were saying, he was just saying unite. We have been taught to be divided in every faction, from religion to race to street corner to streets to states. We're taught to be like, man, where I'm from is da-da-da, we do this, we do that, we do that. I live in Virginia. It takes me 10, 15 minutes to get to DC. When you go to DC, they treat us like we're not black. The people in DC, your own brother will treat you like, man, life is sweeter because you live in Virginia. But mind you, the police in Virginia, there's no back and forth. Where we live at is where George Washington's plantation is at. That was the first president of this country. There is no way that they will allow blacks to have an uprising or anything. It's systematic. It's deep. It's very deep, man. It's too deep. It's deep.
Question. When you're mentioning about, is it not the system, like in the deep core of the system? So why would not a black or brown skin or people of color to open their eyes and understand that they've divided you guys already? Now it's time for you guys to unite. Why is that not starting?
Guys, can I just come in here quickly? Ali, can you just hold that question for a second? Just going back on the question that Clark posed and the answer that Barfoot kind of gave regarding his response. I believe the ladies want to chip in here as well. So do you guys mind just chipping in? Ali, we'll pick up your question after that, please.
All right, no worries.
Yeah, just wanted to talk about like how early it starts and what I'm seeing. We have two nephews, and one of them, the oldest one, he's now 12 years old. He's about my height now, and you can see the sort of even though he's like middle class, he lives in the suburbs in Alexandria, Virginia, and he's feeling the effects of this. He's feeling that fear. He brings the videos to me and he says, look, this happened again. He sees videos that I haven't seen. He's the one who's reporting the news to me because he knows that this could be him. But I also wanted to say that, you definitely see the police like over policing, constantly coming into certain neighborhoods, but it gives certain Black people a kind of sense of false security. This kind of gets to the next question too, where you start to feel like, oh, well, I'm from the right area. I have this kind of background, so that's not really going to happen to me. And you start to see this sort of the separation that we have by class also affecting our ability to come together. And I think a lot of people experience sort of a shock moment where it does happen to them. And I know I think I was sort of aware, but it was still shocking when I was arrested. Even I was arrested by a police officer in after school during my first job as a teacher, and it was in a very rural area outside of Atlanta, and we drove for a very long time, back roads, woods, and I thought that he was going to kill me. You know, the history comes back, and you understand that your life is actually in danger, and you know that this person can do anything to you that they want to, and you're afraid. And you know, you may not experience it on a daily basis growing up in the suburbs, but I think almost every Black person is going to experience it at one point or another. And so we do need to realize that it's an everyone problem. It's not these people over here, these people over there. But there have been a lot of sort of systematic efforts to create that separation by class with Black people.
Mm-hmm. And just to caveat of that, just like some Black people feel like if they are leading by example of what the model Black person should be, then racism doesn't affect them. Or if it hasn't necessarily affected them or anybody around them yet, then they don't need to be involved in helping out the community. And they don't really view it as an issue for them just because, you know, it hasn't happened to them yet. So, but it is going to happen at some point because of the communities that we live in and the society that we live in. And then just statistically, like Black boys are viewed 5 or more years older than they actually are. So, you know, that childhood being able to do the things that children do is kind of like stripped from them. You know, like they're automatically supposed to be doing certain things. Like you can't have a toy gun, you know, like things like that, you know, like the things that children do, Black boys aren't allowed to do, you know, and they get the book thrown at them for doing things that adolescents do. And, you know, as far as uniting, a lot of Black people that are middle class and up feel like they can rise above racism through class. But we know that that's not true. And because honestly, if you get pulled over and the police is asking you questions and you know, you're at gunpoint, they're not going to know what your credit score is. They're not going to know what your profession is. So
and they're going to think you stole your car.
Exactly,
anyway.
Exactly.
We've been asked multiple times, just stop, like, do you own your car?
Right.
No other reason.
Mm-hmm. So, like, it's the color of your skin, you know, like they don't know the type of person that you are when they're pulling you over, when you're coming out of a convenience store. They don't know who you are. They just know that you're a Black person and they already have those stereotypes and they're willing to act on those stereotypes. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. The insight that you've given us all in that sense. I did want to follow on Ali's question, but then I did want to kind of tie that in more into the next question of sharing your own personal experience or negative experience with the police or police officers. I did want to start again with Balfour, just if you could share yourself or someone that you know of their actual interaction with the police and how you found that, how the outcome was, what happened in that situation.
That's all of us. All of us, like me, my friend, like it's nothing, like it's regular. Like it becomes regular, man. Like you know what you do, like you know what comes with a police encounter. Like the female, like they were just talking about the ladies was just talking about how you get pulled over and just ask simple question like, is this your, but that right there can escalate to him picking with you, wanting to know this, wanting to know that, wanting to know that. If you had a long day, you don't want to hear it, you might be mad, you might not have the best attitude, and it will escalate, and it's their world. In America, it's really their world. You can't do too much. But as far as like police encounters, to me personally, You see how George Floyd was killed, right? You have to be so willing to be arrested for you not to be like abused, for you not to get beat on, pretty much. So like, okay, so if you know you just been in, if they have brushed you, like they brush you, you.
Balfour, I think we're losing you a bit. Your sound's gone and we can't even see your audio right now.
Would it be okay then to go back to Ali for Ali to kind of raise this question again? I think we're kind of alluding to that, but I think Ali's question had other kind of angles to it, I guess. So maybe I could, Ali, or should I kind of try pose it and let me know whether it's the right thing, I'm on the right lines? So I believe that your question was more looking at the UK and trying to draw some similarities between our experiences here in the US. And then it was just more about, is Balfour back?
Yeah, I'm back, man. But I don't know, the connection. No, like I was saying about how it's about, you have to overstand in this country. Like I have a boy, right? Say if something happens with the police, I don't want him to start screaming and none of that. You have to be composed. Am I on the group thing, or is just me and you?
Yeah,
No, we can hear you.
You're on.
Oh, okay. You really have to be poised. Okay, so like they will grab you, and they'll grab you before you know what's happening. You won't know what you're getting locked up for. They'll be like, it's made for you to panic and do something you're not, so they can, So as a black male, you have to know how to deal with them when they come to you. You have to be like, sir, like you have to make them relax. You have to make them comfortable. If you don't, it's gonna get ugly. But it's hard to explain it. You have to be on the ground. You have to be here and feel these men. You gotta feel it. You gotta be in these situations to know, because everybody reacts different, and depending on your reaction will depend on the outcome. George Floyd, he did not do nothing. But see, like in that situation, you have to tell the police, like, look, you can arrest me alone, sir. Just you have to have your hands. There's no resistance, no nothing. Even if you're innocent, you can't go back and forth and do all this extra stuff, because you're gonna get beat up before you even go down to the jail, to the precinct. So you might as well just. I've been pulled out of the car, slammed. Like they caught me doing something. They picked me up, slammed me, right? They slammed me, and they start going through my stuff. Like they're looking through my pockets. The man goes in my pocket, he finds a button, and he's trying to like make it seem like he found something else. Like, and I'm like, no, that's a button, sir. Like you can't lose if you lose any bit of composure, you're going to lose it. Okay, so once he takes me and puts me in a car now, he puts me in a car and he's asking me my name. Mind you, he already took my ID and everything. So I'm telling him, look, you already have my info. Me not getting him, like cooperating with him fully, he starts banging on the dashboard. Like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, he wants to antagonize me. He wants me to get mad. And I'm like, look, man, you don't have to, I have to stay relaxed and damn near laugh at him for him to feel stupid. Because it's over with. I'm already going down we going to the gym. Why are you doing it? But he wants more out of me. He wants me to tell on somebody. He wants me to continue the cycle that we have in our community. You get the white man do something to catch you, boom. Now you turning on your brothers. You doing this, and it's very deep, man. The pressure they'll put on you. Some people will fold. When you get out, they've labeled you a snitch. You can't survive in your neighborhood. Something's about to happen to you. It's very, very deep. I don't even want to be talking because I feel like I be talking too much. You know what I'm saying? So I just rather other people speak, because I don't want to be talking, because I go through it. So it's coming from the inside of me when I'm telling you this. You know what I'm saying? So it's ugly out here, man. I got mans, they'll go your drawers, they'll do all that. They'll do all of it. They'll do the whole thing. So it's no respect for us, period. It's no respect.
Were the ladies, were you going to come in? Because we're just going to move on to Ali's question, and I know Cam's got a question as well, so we're just going to go through some questions, unless you wanted to respond to what Balfour just said quickly before we move on.
Go on to the questions.
Yeah, you can go into the questions. That's fine.
Ali, Do you mind posing that question again, please?
What I was mentioning, Buffer, and the ladies as well, what I was saying is in UK, for example, we've got London and we've got boroughs such as Brixton, Peckham and Lewisham and much more. So for me as a black man, if I maneuver to Brixton, for example, the only consequences that I can feel is gonna affect me is perhaps if I'm from a gang. So that gang related to postcode and etc. But apart from that, literally everything would be fine. I would be literally welcome from my black community or from the black area where I'm going to. But why is it in America, how many years of history? I understand you're saying segregation. I understand that you're saying system. But I feel right now that what is happening now, I feel like you guys need to unite. You know, stop all of this nonsense among each other, the jealousy, the hatred, all of that. Just come and unite. Because us in here, we have a different way of mindset, how we think here. Yes, racism is here, but it's underneath the carpet. It's not like the brutal way how it's shown in America. So I don't know what you guys want to elaborate into that, please.
I think there's a lot of levels to that. I recognize exactly what you're saying, and I think it's completely true. But what I would say is that it's sort of easy for me in my position to say, yeah, we all need to come together. But I mean, I'm a social studies teacher, and so I've delved pretty deeply into U.S. history, and I'm always looking at it from the perspective of how it affects things today. And so just briefly, like beginning in slavery, there was a sort of divide and conquer, like a psychological divide and conquer that the owning class perpetuated against Black people. So it was like, if you're in the house, if your skin color is lighter, you're set aside, and you might get slightly better treatment. But when you're in the moment, it may feel like it's better, but you're still being owned by someone. And so if they can pit you against each other, then it makes it easier for them to control you and to own you. And then you see that moving up even in our like civil rights movements, which I mean accomplished a lot, and I'm proud of it, but there are issues there too. So you take, for example, the fact that you look at something like the Martin Luther King and his movement, and the fact that he's the face of that movement. You know, I was really surprised actually when I visited Martin Luther King's childhood home. He grew up in a house that I would consider really big now. So he was definitely from a situation where he wasn't dealing with a lot of the same things that people who were really poor and Black were dealing with, but he's still Black. So you kind of see there's all these levels, and people are sort of pitted against one another. And I think that there are some people who, even throughout the accomplishments that we've made as Black people, they never have seen any results from that. And there's a lot of frustration, and people take it out on each other. And one thing that I would like to point out is that that's not just a Black thing. That's an everyone thing. If you see people who live in poverty, they tend to fight for power amongst each other because they can't fight for power anywhere else. So I think it's important to note that that's not just a Black thing, but we see it because we are the oppressed race in this country. But yeah, we do need to come together, but I think it's going to take, and I think you might be referring to like gang violence and things like that, where people are concerned about where you're from and that kind of thing. I don't experience that on a daily basis. I do feel like in the spaces that I'm in, because it's a lot of spaces where there's a lot of white people, if I walk in and I see another Black person, I'm more at ease. It doesn't matter where they're from. I'm happy to have somebody who's Black there. But I do understand that, you know, there are a lot of issues within the Black community that we need to overcome. And you would think that something like this would pull us together, but because things affect different groups differently, it makes it harder.
Yeah, and just quickly, I think because there is classism in America, racism affects Black people differently depending on what class you belong to. So, you know, during the civil rights movement, you know, of course, Martin Luther King belonged to, you know, the middle class. So, you know, they were fighting for rights to go to have access to places where white people were frequenting, you know, whereas somebody who was living in the struggle on a daily basis just wanted a basic wage to live. You know what I mean? So they were struggling for different reasons. And racism was hitting them in different ways and affecting them in different ways. So and I think that's still very relevant today. Like racism is, if you're a middle class Black person, you know, racism is affecting you in a different way than you are if you're a poor Black person. And where I think middle class Black people have the ability to progress, and they might become, you know, a CEO of a company or something, or a president. Exactly. Or a president. A lot of times that doesn't necessarily affect the poor Black people, you know, like a president isn't able to affect things in a small community, in a city. So I think that's where the problem really lies, is that racism affects Black people differently because we are in different classes here. So
yeah,
Well,
no, I think it's really interesting to get that. Hold on,
I
was that
would like
Emily?
on something when it comes to this particular topic about the unifying unification of us. I went to London like 2 years ago for the first time, and when I went to London, that's something I noticed that y'all have more than we have here. There, y'all are more together than Black people are here. You do get the vibe of feeling at home around certain Black people. They'll give you that nostalgia. They'll give you that feeling in your soul, like, yeah, these are my people. You can get that vibe too here. But look, it goes back, it's deep. When the girls was talking about how certain people skin tones will get into the house. Once you leave from the field to the house, there's animosity immediately. As soon as you go from a working man in the field to a corporate or whatever, it's animosity. It's like, you left me. You got to understand, our women, Black women, was being raped by white men. The child becomes light. The child enters the house. Yeah, they enter the house off of a white man raping the mom, and now they take, like, you know, it's too deep, man. A person to get sold and leave his family and go to another plantation and forget his whole everything. Look right now, this situation right now, everybody scream Jay-Z, hold this, hold that, reform this, reform that. If you don't want there to be classism, you have to show that you are of your people. You have to get on the ground level and touch their hands and go to those places. Even if you don't feel wanted, you can't be afraid of your brother. Like, people be scared of each other. Black people are not supposed to be scared of each other. We be even scared of each other. It's serious, man. Like, you don't, like, when you say, why can't they unify? Like, bro, some Black people don't even feel like their roots are African. They're from Africa. So you don't even understand. You'll have to, that conversation, that unification thing you're trying to get through, it will take years for him. And this will be your friend, though, your personal homie. It will take you years for him to get that, concept. And it will take a lot of patience from you, because you won't understand why he doesn't get it. You'll get frustrated. But it's a lot of lessons in life, and different things have to happen to open people's eyes in different ways for their perspective to change. You know what I'm saying? So it's very hard to get the unification that we want. I understand. I want it more than everything. I want everybody to just go back to Africa, to be honest, because that's where we'll feel wanted. That's where we'll feel like we mean something. We'll feel like we have roots, we belong. But you can't tell that to somebody that doesn't even know nothing. Like, he's so far behind, so far removed from Africa. They don't know what to, like. It's too deep, bro. It's hard. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, right now, everybody's looting the stores. Some people are mad. Black people are mad that Black people are looting Gucci. Just last year, Gucci had the blackface. Wasn't y'all supposed to ban them? But see, they forget. And then when people are looting, people are crying on the internet. They're crying over Black people are lost right now. They don't know what to do. They haven't even charged the other 3 police officers, and people are talking about people looting. You see the man that was standing right there? Why the man, like, all these people should be charged with at least involuntary, man, something. But they like, man, bro, I don't know. It is what it is, man.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Especially in terms of the whole mindset and the timing and how things are quickly forgotten. I did want to bring it back to everybody else, kind of just to also give their kind of London perspective as well in terms of their experiences with the police, be it negative, and how they found that, be it themselves or someone that they know. I did want to open it up to the other hosts if you guys wanted to mention anything.
Yeah, I can start off. So I think the black community in the UK, we have a fractured relationship with the police, and that's a relationship that dates back to as far as the 80s, where we've had riots in Brixton because they had stop and search laws where police could just stop anyone they wanted to they wanted to search, and that law was being disproportionately applied to black people in the community, and so that caused riots to take place. Following on from that, we had issues. We had cases like the Stephen Lawrence case, where an inquiry was made into the Metropolitan Police, and they were found to be institutionally racist. Obviously, Stephen Lawrence was a young black boy. He was killed by a gang of white thugs, or white people, so to speak, and the police just didn't do much in terms of trying to investigate that murder. They cut a lot of corners, left a lot of evidence under the table, and it took a good amount of time before anyone was brought to justice on that case. I can't remember the years from the top of my head, but it was certainly more than 5 years before anyone was brought to justice in that case. But moving forward, I think although we have a fractured relationship with the police, I can't in any way compare it to circumstances in America. For one major difference, that the police don't carry firearms here. You know, we're not having to deal with that. The worst thing that anyone's encounter with the police could result in is an arrest. You know, it could be an arrest. However, obviously there are instances of extreme examples of police using excessive force on people, and black people have died in custody. So I can't move away from that fact. But the fact still remains that the worst thing that could happen in terms of an encounter with the police is an arrest and being taken into custody. I had a colleague of mine who represented someone in court for a criminal offence, and this was someone who was stopped and searched by the police, and in fact the police just stopped them while they were driving, searched their car. No, in fact they stopped them while they were driving, did a check on them, and then it was fine. But instead of walking away, this person just started giving all sort of lip to the police, and the police just thought, okay, we're going to search your car. They searched his car, found a knife in the car, and as a result he was arrested for that. While he was taken to custody, he was charged and taken to court, and my colleague represented him at the trial, and he had a reasonable explanation for the knife, so he was acquitted. But before the trial, my colleague did say to him, before we go into court, you've got to calm down with that aggressive attitude. You can't go into court, be aggressive, kick off and all that sort of stuff, because if you do, that's not going to look good to the judge. And in fact, I think that's what was conveyed by the police, that this was a young black man who was being aggressive on a traffic stop, and just showed, you know, a severe level of animosity towards the police. And after the trial, my colleague had a conversation with the guy, and he asked the guy, what country are you from? And the guy said he's from Jamaica. And he said to the guy, he said, would you kick off to the police in Jamaica the way you did in the UK? And he started laughing. And he said, no, serious question, would you? And he goes, no, I wouldn't. He goes, why not? He goes, they'd probably shoot me. And it was just that point, it was just that, you know, significant point of that they were armed, and as a result, there's a certain level of fear in terms of how you engage with them, in terms of, you know, when you speak to them and whatnot. And I think that certainly is the difference in the UK. I mean, in terms of my experience with the police, I could certainly say I haven't had, I could say from when I was younger, I had negative experiences with the police. I haven't really had much experience as I've gotten older, but But a lot of the time, I think when I was stopped by the police when I was younger, when I'd be driving, certainly would be for silly reasons. And I just felt like they were stopping me for the very fact that I could have been black.
Yeah, so just to clip in here regarding I think the point that Cam made regarding the police being weaponized here, and I think that's the main difference from the UK and the US, because there has been a fractured relationship, so much so that in my spare time I do kind of like I give my time for like a football team. You guys call it soccer, but it's called football here, and it's officially football. It's not soccer, by the way. Just so you know, I just want to make that clear. But anyway, and so I do coach a team, and around the area where I coach a team is the area that we grew up in. There's a lot of a lot of violence, a lot of youths kind of killing each other in that area. So what has kind of transpired is that the police are a bit more active in that area. So you have patrol cars kind of like driving around and all those kind of stuff. And I think for me, the challenge I kind of have in these countries is we're very reactive regarding kind of like resolving issues that are happening in the black communities. Reactive in a sense that some of the points I can mention regarding if there is an increase in gang activity, or there's an increase in a lot of black people passing, what would happen is that the police will normally just have this blanket kind of rule, which will be stop and search, as in that's the only solution. So they will just go around any kind of community, see any black person and try to stop them. And I feel like that's interesting because obviously I have a child, so I have a son who is around 12. And I don't want him to have that experience as a young boy that is just growing up, enjoying youth, to have that kind of negative experience with the police. Because first of all, you haven't done anything wrong. And if you are being questioned, you should be questioned with some sort of evidence-based kind of questioning, not just because that's your skin color. And there has been a divide even among some of our friends where they're saying, oh, but that seems to be the only solution because how else can you find anything? And this is what becomes some of the stuff that you guys have mentioned in there, because it desensitizes you. It almost makes you feel like it's a norm thing. And the problem I had, and the reason why I mentioned this example with the youth, is because these youth live in this community. So even if you are patrolling in that community to understand or to make sure that there's a deterrent, because you don't want the youth gathering and doing that, come, they're playing football. Why don't you come and try to speak to the youth? Understand what they are going through. Make them feel that you are their friend. Don't make them feel like you are the enemy because of stuff that they've seen around them. And that's the problem I had, because it feels like resources are being poured into a solution, but the solution doesn't go into the root cause of the problem. And I feel like the root cause of the problem sometimes is just having that kind of discussion. Us growing up, I didn't have a really good kind of experience with the police because I always saw them as a threat. And even with the example that you kind of raised, Cam, regarding if this person was in Jamaica and they had that experience with the police, would they kind of raise their voice? I don't think they'll raise their voice, but it's not because the police are armed. It's because they don't see the police as on the other side. If I'm in Ghana and the police have arms, I'm not going to raise my voice because I know that they are not racist towards me. I have no reason apart from saying, why are you stopping me and stuff like that. I don't have any reason to raise my voice. So I think that question and the answer to it is a bit loaded. It's not just about the police carrying guns as the reason why someone might not raise their voice, but they might do that because they feel that they're always being picked on. So it's almost like that's their way of venting out, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, for me, I've had an encounter with the police when I was quite young. So, but it wasn't a brutal. It was just the thing about as what everyone's as discussion is. For me personally, when you do have an encounter with the police, for me anyway, my opinion is just to calm. And the situation is not as severe as in America, where they want you to be angry to the core, where you can't hold it anymore. You just wanna lash out. So in here it's different, but obviously the police, they do have kind of tactics how they want you to portray yourself and then get into that violent atmosphere. But yeah, but what I have noticed when I was growing up, since when I had the encounter with the police, I changed my appearance. So that appearance is hipster style. I cut my hair. I took off my earring of my ears, and that changed my perspective, and that changed everything of how the police would see me, and that changed everything about how I am going to certain area of the location where I am. But towards all of this, to me personally, it shouldn't be the case for me to change. If I wanted to have my hair, I wanted to have my earring, I should still have it. I shouldn't I shouldn't able to try to change my appearance or everything about me to fit in, you know? And but the only good thing about me is that I saw that when I was young, quite early, that if I need to be involved or part of the society, I need to portray myself in a different way. But I thought to myself, no. But it's not because I was fair of the situation where I was going to grow up and then get myself in certain area. Is because as an educated black man, I thought to myself to have a good appearance, whereby whether it's black, white, Indian, every other color, I can fit in. That's the way I saw my way of growing up. And yes, the only difference is in here, our police officer do not have a gun, you know, right? But the only other worst side where probably can missed is like, is it a taser or a laser gun? They have that. Now it's been granted for them to have it now. So that is the only other worst part where police can use. Or if it comes to a situation where it is quite worse within the incident, they will bring an armed police. That's the worst that they can do. But in relation to all of this situation, I believe or I think that because of my color, I shouldn't be scared. Whether a police stop me, I should have the right and the confidence to able to talk to police and ask them questions. It shouldn't escalate to another degree for them to even take me to the court, or for them to even to handcuff me, because it's a normal nature. It's a nature. It's a human nature. When you are in a situation as some part of our participant as addressed, you've had a long day, right? And then from that long day, you're exhausted. The least that you don't want is a police to stop you and ask you a silly question. So you're gonna retaliate. That's what it is. It's just a human nature. But then they see us as black. We are angry. We are disorganized. We are just like an animal, a wild animal. We can't be, what's the word? We can't have a proper conversation. But no, it's not. It's just a human nature. Like you stop me for the wrong reason, I'm gonna ask you a question. And if you can't answer me those questions, I'm gonna retaliate. And then I'm gonna raise my temper. And I'm gonna raise my temper until we solve the situation. But here, we can do that. But in America, that's a different story. And yeah, that's from my personal experience. That's what I've had.
Yeah, and I know there might be a few people that want to chip in here. I know Roy wanted to ask a question. Roy, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
So
please.
yeah, I was listening to Balfour, and I was also listening to Ali as well. I was listening to what you were saying as well, Coach. But there's I get where you were coming from in the sense of there's different ways that society has taken the norm, though. So in the sense of we're not the same countries, we've got different levels of force that the police are allowed to use. There's different ways that they do it, but it all comes down to the same thing. Because the example I'm going to use is the lady that was trying to call the police on the guy that was just telling her something. It's something that's actually a norm, not just for the white people, but for anyone to know that the police tend to come to black people with the wrong approach. And that's what I think most of the things, that's what instigates everything. It instigates them coming with the wrong approach, and then they're smug to know that no matter what they do, they'll get away with it. It's the smug look that you see that most of them have. I've got a personal experience with them. So obviously we've all been young and we've all been in the wrong, where we're learning our learning phases. So I'm not even going to include that. I have had no interaction with the police up until a few years ago. Okay. Now the whole interaction thing comes with the class thing that they were saying, but as the girls label, look, it doesn't matter what class you're in, they're still not going to believe you. Even if you educated yourself, you're talking to them properly, they'll ask you a question as a black person, but you also need to prove that you're telling the truth. So it's like, even if they were to ask you like your profession, they'll ask you questions regarding it, but they don't do this to the other race. Do you get where I'm coming from? So it's like it's like they don't take you for what they're supposed to take you for in the first place. There's also accounts where, as Camise was saying, it's more in the sense of the police tend to, not the only thing they can take away from you is get you arrested here. They also can take your credibility, and that's what they're trying to do. I feel that's what they've been trying to do for a little while. So it's like there's credible people that feel they have a voice, and all they're trying to do is take that voice away to make everybody on the same level feel that you can't say anything. It comes in the way of them approaching you wrong, antagonizing and pushing those buttons to make you angry. And once you're angry, most people tend to go aggressive, but there's no art form of not passing off anger aggressively that I feel. And they'll try and cover it up and just put more things onto you. So if there's an investigation going on about the police or anything, they'll do so many things that just go against the law and just against rights. I've had a personal experience a few years ago where they approached me wrong, and I reacted according to the way they approached me. So it wasn't a wrong way of reacting, but they made it out as if, and they clearly lied to the point that they made it out as if they tried to go on character. And my character has been flawless before that encounter. Like, just absolutely, I didn't have no interaction with them, didn't need to, anything. You know, where you just try to shoot straight arrow for no excuses. There's no excuse for it. And the worst thing about it is, it's not just down to the police, it's even the judge, even everybody else. Like, they're all rooting for the same thing, and they don't, it's like they don't listen, no way to be heard, and it silences us. Because just like Balfour was saying, it's like he feels not to say anything now, because it's like you need enough people to talk. And then for me personally, I feel braver to talk now in the sense because there's experience of it. But before that, these past, let's say 4 years, I felt silent, because it's like, even down to the judge couldn't even see, even with video evidence and everything, the judge still made an excuse for them. So it's like, what norm is it that we're supposed to be accustomed to? Because you can educate yourself enough, you can bring yourself up to everything that you need. Where does it all go to? Then that's that. Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
Yeah, nice. You know what? It's interesting that you say that. So I would say I hear what everyone's saying in terms of the UK and the American police and the arms and stuff like that. And I'll say definitely that the US have a very more aggressive and dangerous experience with the police as opposed to the UK. But the thing that I'll say about the UK that differs from the US is that the UK are a lot more sinister and insidious in how they do things. So you'll find that in America, the shootings are literally outside on a main street, killings, stuff like that. But in the UK, a lot of the police deaths in custody have been at a police station or in an enclosed environment or somewhere where there isn't that big confrontation at first or anything like that. And maybe it's they have a training awareness here in the UK, that they might be a lot more different about it, or their approach, like they're not just going to do everything straight away. But I do feel in terms of the dangers for your life may not be as bad as the UK, but it's still very much prevalent here in London. Just like in 2011, the whole London riots, how that sparked off by Mark Duggan, who was shot by the police. The undercover police, if they're targeting someone, they are carrying firearms. They do have firearms here in the UK, definitely. It's just your normal, average, general police officers that you might encounter. They won't be carrying guns. But because I live quite central, so I will come across a lot of the armed police, just mainly because I'm living near Westminster Bridge, near Parliament. And even when I'm going, when I used to work up more in like Chelsea or Victoria area, because that's near where Scotland Yard used to be and Buckingham Palace and that. And all around there, the police there are armed. They've got their guns, everything. But what I will say to this in terms of experiences, I find here in the UK, you can get away and talk a little bit more, less necessary in terms of how, like the experience with Barthol was saying, where no matter what you say or something can come across the wrong way. I do feel if you have some kind of knowledge in terms of how to carry yourself with the police, you can carry out certain things. But then I do also understand the emotional element, as in, if you're triggered and they know how to trigger you, then all logic, common sense, or whatever goes out the window, and you're going to be more reactive. And yeah, so that's the differences I've seen basically in terms of the UK and America. But in both places, I find they really don't discriminate. You could be 70 years old and getting abused by the police here in the UK, same as the US. You could be as young as 6 or 9 years old in the US or the UK, and you'll still be getting harassed and abused by the police. So everyone of all walks of life is affected by it all in some way or how.
I think Balfour just wanted to chime in.
I wanted to. I feel like Clark is having a very good understanding and very good perspective of this whole situation from being on that side. When I went to London, the way y'all dealt with, the way citizens of the UK deal with the police was a culture shock. I was like this. I was surprised. I was like, damn. They cussing them out, saying whatever, doing, having their way. I was like, wow, that's how y'all deal with the police? It's a different, you see how, okay, when we spoke on the class thing, remember I said something about you have to be of the people, because no matter how high your class gets, a white person will let you know that we are not the same. No matter how black, how high you get or how much you advance as a black man and you get to a class of that's superior, you will never, they will never allow you to forget that you are less than them. That's why you have to go to your people, to the bottom, and let them know you are just like them. That's one thing I want to speak on. All right, that when it comes to class, that was one thing. And then the second thing was about how when you get locked, the systematic thing, about how you guys are talking about the judge, listen, when you get locked here, how you behaved from you getting arrested to the precinct is how it depends on if you get out of jail that night. They will ask the lady at the bailiff, the lady that's there will ask the arrested officer, how was this general? How was he? If he can lie and you'll be there tonight. You'll be there. Like, I'm telling you, it's different. No matter how British, the UK and the US, they did this. The whole thing was aligned together. Their alliance, there was aligned, but they didn't house slaves. America housed. They the one that kept them, so they have to keep them under control. The same way they took them with violence. Okay, that one incident about how you could come from work and somebody was speaking about how you could come from work and you had a long day, you're upset. So you're frustrated. In America, if you're smart, you got to know that long day you had, put that shit you better get that together and deal with this man the right way so you can go on about your day, because he could have you sitting here for an hour, 2 hours, just messing with you, just ask you, can I get a search? Can I search your, just all types of BS. So your mind level is more than just education. After you educate yourself, you also have to be able to control your actions. Like, you have to be able to channel your energy. You have to learn how to channel it, because you could be mad. Once you see that man, you have to talk to him a certain way if you want to get up out of that situation the right way, without being lied to, drugs planted on you, something. Sandra Bland got killed in the precinct. When you're saying they do private things, they kill people inside the jail and they'll tell your family whatever. It's way more things that you guys don't even know, or that they've hid from us, that we live in here, we don't even know that they've done to us. It's unlimited stories, unlimited history on Black history. I went to an HBCU. My history class was not American. It wasn't American history. It was Black history. It's stories that I never. It's on and it's long. This conversation we're having, after we get off this Zoom, we're gonna get on our phone, we're gonna click the TV, and our reality is gonna be right in your face. Yeah. And the reality is that a man is dead, and everybody's going crazy. But it's nothing really, like, so.
Whilst we are here, powerful. Sorry, someone posed a question to you directly, just based on some of the stuff that you gave. So you did mention that you are a father, and the question is around more your experience of parenting in the US, obviously regarding some of the stuff you shared with us, how do you feel you need to equip your child to be able to navigate some of these kind of experiences that you've kind of shared?
I don't have a child. I have like little brothers. I have, people that may look up to me, that, looking to me to show them. I don't have a child.
Okay.
So I have a younger brother, and I have, younger brothers in the neighborhood, in the community that that look up to me or will ask me for advice, or I will advise.
Okay. At this point, then, can I bring the ladies in? Because I know you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to, when you talked about Sandra Bland, that one really stuck out to me because when the police arrested me for something that was really ridiculous and like held me for longer than they should have, and everything was just completely scary, I was very hyper aware of how I should behave in that situation. I was angry, I was frustrated, but I think over everything else, I felt fear. And that fear was enough to keep me calm in a way where I didn't want to put myself in a situation because I knew the power that they had. And when the Sandra Bland situation happened and she was understandably upset, she reacted in the way that, like you guys are saying, any human being would if they're approached in that way. She responded. And because she probably just had like more of a fiery personality, maybe didn't have that same fear that I had, she ended up dead. And they say she hung herself. I don't believe that. And I just know that in that situation that I was in, it was entirely possible, if I had lashed out in any way, that they would have used that as an excuse to really harm me, because they didn't even do it's a long story, but they didn't even do the paperwork right. I was like, they were telling my mom that I wasn't there, and I was there for hours. So they were basically setting up a situation where I could literally just disappear. And you should be able to to react like any human being would react. And we see that other races are allowed to do that. They can just say whatever they want, and they're not seen as a threat. But because your skin makes you a threat to not only the police, but to the general public, where they will call the police on you. And I think this is another thing moving forward. We need people to understand that, like, you can't just call the police on Black people. That is a situation that might end up in people losing their lives. Stop weaponizing the police. But the police have always been a weapon of the state in the United States, I think, and specifically in keeping Black people in control from slavery on. So I think there's that entire history. I think that's a difference as well. It's like the police have always been a part of controlling Black people, specifically on behalf of the state. And I think that the police will never be able to really, will never have a good relationship with the Black community until they acknowledge that history and change it moving forward. Because right now, it's just a continuation of that same thing.
Yeah, no, I hear your sentiments, definitely. And I think those are a lot of the concerns that a lot of us really have in that sense, in how the police act and things that are happening to everyone.
So that concludes part one into our conversation of injustice and police brutality towards the Black community. Please tune into our podcast, the LDN Perspective podcast, next week, where you'll be able to hear part two of this discussion.